Good afternoon. Welcome to the second virtual training video in our COVID training series. Today we're going to talk about our Zoll AED Plus. This is the AED that we carry on engine 5101. We're going to go over some of the features, some of the testing procedures, and we're going to take a look at the CPR feedback capabilities that this device has. So to get started, we're all pretty familiar with this device. You have the power button right up here in this corner. That's going to turn the device on and off. Over here you have the status indicator, and in this area you're either going to see a green check mark or a red X. A green check means okay, and a red X means there's a problem somewhere else. When we open the AED up, you'll notice that we have a set of adult pads that are pre-connected. We're going to talk about that, but it's important that our pads always stay pre-connected for this to be able to do its self-test. On the side of the case, we have a pair of scissors in this pocket for easy access. And then in the back, we have a set of pediatric pads, an extra set of adult pads, and a small kit that has a razor for patients with excessive chest hair. So now let's take a closer look at the device itself. You'll see right here, that's the green check mark in the status indicator window. So this device does regular self-checks. It'll check the battery level and it will do an internal circuit test. If there's any issues, it'll have a red X. But because we have that green check mark, we know everything is good to go. When you do your daily checks, all you have to do is visually check and make sure that you have that green check mark and that we have two sets of adult pads, a set of pediatric pads, razor, and scissors. When you look at the device itself here, this will be your shock button. When it prompts you to shock and it's ready to deliver a shock, this button will light up and you just depress that. This will be the LCD screen, and that will give you some CPR feedback information that will show at a later time. Now, we talked about the importance of having these pads connected. If you don't leave the pads connected, eventually that indicator will turn to a red X. And so it's important to keep these pads connected so that the device can do its self-checks. If we were going to transfer to pediatric pads from adult pads, all we have to do is pull out this adult pad connector and plug the pediatric pads into that same spot, and now we're ready to go. If you'll take a look at the status indicator, that's the red X. So if there's any problem with this device during its self-test, it'll show that red X. If you look at the AED and you see that red X, it means that we have to further investigate. It might need new batteries, it might need new pads checked in, or there might be a malfunction with the device itself. So normally we don't have to do manual tests of the AED. If you have the green check mark, you should be good to go. But it does have a manual test feature, and the way that we do a manual test is we're going to depress the on-off button for 5 seconds. We're going to press it, we're going to hold it for 5 seconds. It's going to enter a manual test mode.
Unit OK.
It'll give you the unit OK voice prompt, and it will show it on the LCD screen, and you know that we are good to go. So that's how to do a manual test on the AED. Once it's done doing that manual test, it will shut off on its own. We don't typically have to do a manual test, but if you have a red X for whatever reason, you want to do a manual test, and it will tell you if there's any issues found, like low battery or plug-in pads. So this AED has several features to help us out during a resuscitation. When we use pads that have a built-in CPR feedback device, this AED will give you feedback on your compressions. and it's going to do it in 3 ways. Over here, you're going to see there'll be a graph on the side of the screen. Every time you do a compression, this graph will come down with each compression that you do. There will be 2 lines down here. The first line is 2 inches, which is the minimum recommended depth for an adult. And the second line will be 2.4 inches, which is the maximum recommended depth. So as you do compressions, the goal is to get this bar graph to come between these 2 lines, and it will be a real-time display as you compress. The device will also give you prompts on the screen, and so it will either say push harder if you are not compressing deep enough, or if you are meeting the minimum depth, it will tell you good compressions. And not only will it show it on the screen, but it will also give you an audio prompt to help the compressor really maximize high quality CPR. It does have a couple other features on the screen that help us out. Up here, there'll be a timer. So this is the elapsed time since we turned the AED on. So if we turn the AED on at the beginning of a resuscitation, this will run a continuous counter so that we can tell the responding paramedics, we have been doing CPR for 1 minute and 23 seconds, for example. Over here in this corner here, it will keep a log of how many shocks have been delivered. So if we forget how long we've been doing CPR, if we forget how many shocks we've delivered, you can look at the screen of the AED and we can say, we've done 1 shock and we've been doing CPR for about 1 minute and 23 seconds. So we've got firefighter Marcos here, who's going to help us demonstrate proper placement of the electrode pads. So first he's going to go ahead and remove all the clothing. We're going to bare the chest. Remember that we have those scissors in the AED. If the patient has excess water or moisture on the chest, we're going to wipe it off with a towel. If there's excess chest hair, we're going to use the razor. Now he's going to go ahead and get the pads out of the AED. Remember, we'll have those adult pads pre-connected. He's going to find the arrows. He's going to peel the package open. I'm going to take the pads out. And so he's going to find the red tab on the pad. He's going to peel it off of the plastic and put it onto the chest as shown in the picture. He's going to make sure that pad is all the way stuck down against the skin. He's going to go to that next pad. He's going to find that red tab and he's going to peel that plastic off. He's going to place that pad and the CPR feedback device on the patient's chest. Perfect. We're going to make sure that that CPR feedback device is on the chest, in the center of the chest, in between the nipples. This is an example of the CPR feedback.
Push harder.
The device will prompt Marcos to push the appropriate depth, and once he's compressing deep enough, it'll give him the
Good compression.
prompt.